exponential curves are very difficult for humans to perceive. We view time very linearly, and when technology starts growing exponentially, we lose track of how fast these things can grow and how fast they can learn and how good they can get very quickly. What we do in the AEC industry is we build the foundation level for how everything else in society is built. If you're a young kid out there and you really want to figure out what am I going to do for my life and is it going to be there? Well, my argument to you is the fundamental layer in which our society is built upon is not going anywhere. What I really like to talk about and what I've been trying to talk about more is the state of civil engineering. And I think we have a major problem attracting and retaining young talent. I'm 28 years old, so I'm not as young as I once was. But as I start working at firms and working on larger projects, I'm seeing this trend where I'm one of the youngest people on my project, and I'm kind of looking behind me, looking for younger engineers to start filling in the places that I was from an entry role. And I could talk to my management about this, and they tell me we are having a very hard time trying to bring on young engineers. When I first started doing structural engineering, I was in South Florida, and the week before my first day, the Surfside building had collapsed in Miami. Ooh. So terrible event, and I'm boots on the ground. My first day there, and they have me out on a construction site doing concrete rebar inspections with the senior engineer at the time. And then we hop in the truck, we go over to an apartment condo, we do a 40-year inspection. We're there till about noon. Then I'm back in the office and I'm doing like onboarding for structural design. And I did this for about 2 years, that schedule of just being in the field in the morning, back in the office until late at night doing design. And it burns a lot of people out. And I saw a lot of really smart, talented engineers just couldn't hold on to that schedule, couldn't hold on to that lifestyle. And we lost them. They go work at a bank or they go work at a hedge fund or they work for a developer now. And I'm seeing these really smart people that we can't keep into our fields. And I'm really focused on having a conversation on ways to keep them here because I think it's very important for the future of our industry. So that's what I'm working on right now, is trying to get that message out there.
Nice, dude. Your background, I want to get into some of I don't know, what makes you because you played some college sports.
I did.
Kind of give us a little background.
I see how the connection happened. Baseball? No,
football.
Actually,
football. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Really solid conversation pieces that were happening on LinkedIn, and I was like, I got to talk to this guy. Man's got something to say. So, and that was it. Like we had one conversation. It was like, yes, we've got to get this in front of people. But all right, so backdrop. Just some of
I give my story real fast.
A little bit of a story.
I'm super passionate about civil engineering, if you couldn't tell. I knew I wanted to be a structural civil engineer since I was like a little kid. And it comes from a very unique place, kind of a weird place. And I've never actually told this publicly before, so if I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry. But I was growing up in Staten Island, New York. So that's where I was born. Family's from Brooklyn, from New York City. And when I'm a kid, my father's a firefighter and he passed away on September 11th in the South Tower. So when you're a little kid and something like that happens, you obviously have a lot of questions. And being an internet native kid, I found myself in many places on the internet where they're asking very strange questions about what happened that day and sort of what happened to my dad. And for me, it was always just something that I wanted to understand more. You hear a lot of crazy things, you read a lot of logic-based things, and you're just trying to parse through what the reality is, you know? And I think that's something that's really burned a fire in my soul when I've been pursuing my civil structural engineering career. So I went to school while I was playing high school football, and then I went to university to play football there, but I played D3 at a small school, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Shout out Tech. And when I was there, I went there for studying civil engineering. It's one of the oldest civil engineering schools in the country. We've got some very prestigious alum. One being Washington Roebling. He was the structural engineer on the Brooklyn Bridge. So they talk about him a whole bunch. And then George Ferris is another one. He designed the Ferris wheel. So we got some really good alumni there. And when I'm there and I'm studying, the whole time I'm studying for civil structural engineering, but I also pick up on this new little love that I had developed, and it was programming in Python. So one of my general elective courses, I had an open class. And I chose to do a comp sci class. I'm like, I think computer science is cool. It's probably something that I should know moving into the future. It seemed very important. So in 2015, I took an intro to computer science course. I learned Python. And then ever since then, I was doing my homework and I was coding little widgets and little scripts just to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I'd be practicing my civil structural engineering, but at the same time, sharpening that computer science tool that I have. And as I did this, I graduated. I went to the New Jersey Institute of Technology after that, and I got my master's degree. I was pent up because it was COVID. So I graduated December of 2020, and I really wanted to go into Manhattan, and I wanted to do high-rise design in Manhattan. But because of what was happening there at the time, I couldn't do that. So I was 23. I was in my parents' house. I was going a little stir crazy. And I was like, where can I go to be a normal 23-year-old and get some really good structural design experience? And found a little home in South Florida. And I was living down there for 2 years. So I know I'm rambling a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
This is good. Now you get to Florida.
I know the bit that comes next here because, I don't want to skip that.
I don't want to skip this either. So where do you end up, ultimately working for Bechtel?
Yes.
Right.
And kind of a cool project, at least a cool project name.
Yeah.
So I want to get a mention there.
Yeah, for sure. So I was working with Bechtel. We were doing the Mobile Launcher 2 projects for NASA for the Artemis projects, which was interesting. I got in there. We were about 50% design complete when I had started my role. So for the first 6 months, I was doing a lot of steel connection designs. It was kind of like the lingering portions of the design that we were going to wait until the end to iron out, I think you guys know that pretty well.
Yeah.
So doing a lot of moment end plate connections, figuring out the commodity grid connections as well. And that was such an interesting project because the acoustic loading, the thermal loading, was just off the charts. I come from a building environment where we're loading our members in PSF. And then I get there first day and we're talking in PSI. And I was like, this is some serious loading on these members. And to get connections to work in these environments was difficult to do. And on top of that, for the project, there was a weight constraint. So the Mobile Launcher 2 rolls out to the launch pad. So it goes from the VAB, put it on the crawler takes it out to 39A or 39B or wherever you're launching it from. And typically when you're a structural engineer and you get some of these crazy loading conditions, you want to just beef up the member size, beef up the connection a little bit, and we're good to go. That wasn't an option on this project. So we had to get very unique and very creative when it came to different bracing configurations, different types of load paths that we were working. And it really made you sharpen the pencil on a lot of the connection design that we had to do.
What, just a brief description that you gave makes the profession of engineering seem cool as crap. Just there's so many things that you just said that I'm like, why would somebody not want to be that? So you wanted to get into I guess the problem of engineers not entering into the field and then engineers not staying in the field. So you're doing all this really cool stuff. You got to work on a very well-known project.
Yep.
And you're watching some of your peers choose to do for different things. Mm-hmm. And then you've also done some research on entry into engineering.
Yes, I have.
So what's the word on that?
Yeah, the entry into engineering is the area I'm curious.
Yeah.
What's that looking like?
It's been interesting. Like I started with, we were talking about how I'm looking around. I'm not seeing many people my age doing what I'm doing right now. And I'm asking myself, okay, is this a local problem that I'm seeing, or is this something that's more global, more macro? So I tried to find as much data on the supply and demand of civil structural engineers in the United States. ASC 7, ASC in general has really good data on this. U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics has some pretty decent data on this. Yeah. Looking at some college data as well, graduates coming out. I put together a study and a graph trying to see what the supply and demand has been for civil structural engineering for about 30 years now. The one caveat on this study, it's hard to get retirement data. So it's hard to know exactly who leaves and when they leave. I know there's a lot of professional engineers that have an active license, but they don't typically practice if they're in their older ages. So it's very hard to see what the exact number is. Yeah. But when I was putting this together, what I found very interesting was from the years 2000 to 2012, supply demand is lock in step. They're really keeping pace with each other. They don't fall out of deviance by more than 0.1%. They're very, very close. Around the 2011, 2012 timeframe, though, we see the demand continuing to increase, but the supply of civil engineers starts to taper off. And if you were to go now and keep the same growth percentage, the cumulative percentage year over year of who comes into the industry from 2012 to the study was till 2023, if you keep that same percentage, you see this stagnation in the civil engineering workforce here in the States. And again, supply keeps growing exponentially. And the study that I put together in the year 2031, it looks like for every 26 civil engineering openings in the United States, we'll have about 10 civil engineers here to fill those roles. So I saw that and I was like, okay, maybe my data is bad. So I posted it on LinkedIn and I was like, please like vet my information. If you can find something better and you could figure out a better way to articulate this point that I'm trying to articulate, I'm all ears. That posted really well. It seemed like it really struck a nerve. And I haven't heard any feedback or anything to the contrary where people are not seeing this. I'm very lucky right now. I get to hop on calls and meet new engineers every day. And it's one of the best parts about my life right now. And everybody everywhere is saying the same thing. They are having a really hard time finding young talent and keeping them at their firms and keeping them within the workforce. So I guess the next
try to solve on that. Like how are we currently solving the issue?
How are we currently solving the issue? I think people first look for money. I think that's always the easy solution is saying, hey, if we throw money at these people, hopefully they'll stay. And I think that's for a multitude of factors, not just because civil engineering is hard, but I think the world right now in general, it's expensive and people need to survive and to understand that. When I was going back to my study and I started to ask myself, why am I seeing the data that I'm seeing? And particularly this 2011, 2012 timeframe where you get this you could see a noticeable taper in the data. And for me, at that time period, you have a new form of engineering which is coming to life, which is computer science. And this new computer tech age where kids can go to college and they can get a job with Meta or Google or Apple, and they can make very good amounts of money working for these companies. So if you're looking at like the neural capacity of engineering in the United States, that now takes a portion of that capacity. On top of that, you have new ways for people to provide for themselves. They could be influencers on YouTube. They could do a podcast. They could do other things of that nature. And I think what we need to do better as an industry is we need to persuade people. We need to tell our story. We need to show people that civil engineering isn't just necessary, so you should do it. It is, of course, necessary for our society, but at the same time, we should show people the value, the joy that we bring to not only society, but to our lives as engineers and how much meaning it brings to my life specifically. But I know for many other engineers, it brings a lot of meaning to their life as well. When you talk about civil engineering and you compare it to a tech job, we get moderate pay, but we take on high amounts of risk. We have to sign and steal our drawings. We do that for buildings, for tunnels, for bridges, for everything. So right now I'm looking at an environment, a marketplace where our profession has moderate pay, but high risk. And like I was saying before, the solution seems to be, let's raise the monetary side of this and that'll make everything all right. I think that's only one part of the solution, and I don't think it's very effective. Everyone wants to sit here and slam on the table and say, give me more money. And I would say, get in line. We all want more money at some point, right? So it's not really a very good way to make real lasting change, in my opinion. And I think the best way to handle it is look at it from a risk perspective. And I think if there's a way that we're never going to be able to totally reduce the risk, but if we can moderate the risk and make it less of a burden on these firms, make it less of a burden on these engineers, one, it creates better margins on your projects. So your firm's actually becoming more profitable if you're making less mistakes or you're doing things more efficiently, or if you're just reducing the overall risk of the project that you have, you're not spending as much man hours doing the same thing that you were doing in the past.
Yeah.
That in turn will lead hopefully to engineers getting paid a little bit more. But then I think a problem we have is like an industry, if we want to talk about AEC, is it's an investment at the end of the day. And a lot of people lose sight of that, at least from the real estate development side that I had a lot of interaction with. My project at Bechtel was more of a defense space job, so it's not the same market structure. But I think we need to realize that our projects are investments, the same way that tech startups and SaaS companies are investments. And we live in a world now where we need to compete with those investments. So we really have to do a better job creating products that are better for investors, and we will get more money, I believe, in return for that if we could figure out a way to do that, which is very hard. Yeah. Not easy.
Yeah. Dude, all right. So I got to say this too. Like, I love the passion behind this. I love that you're stepping out and like trying to spread the word and stuff, because I could, like, your passion for this is infectious. That's great. I love it. It's so cool to hear you talk about this stuff. And so, like, for me, like, I can see that you have a why for this, right? You have a why for getting into the industry. You know, you went from wanting to work on high rises in New York to then settling, if we're honest, to go work with NASA and Bechtel, right? But for me, like, I feel like that's a path to getting more people excited about the industry, is to show them some of the cool stuff that they're going to be able to work on Don't you think? Like, do you think that assists in bringing people in?
I think it definitely does. And I think it's a really good point. My why is very unique to me, and I can't expect anyone, nor do I ever expect anyone to have that same why.
Right.
But the projects and the work that we do on a daily basis, that's communal. That's something we could share. And I think that's something as civil engineers, we need to do a better job of. We need to sell our story. We need to tell people, this is what we're building. This is who we are. This is what we do. And it's really hard because their brain power is used 100% of the time to doing the incredible stuff that they do. And it's hard for them to pick their heads up sometimes and realize, I should talk about this more. I should tell my story because I actually have a very incredible story. And it's hard today, especially where there's so many different voices and so many distractions out there, that some of these people and their stories and what they do, they go unnoticed at times and they're almost not taken for granted. And I think that's another nerve that's definitely felt within my industry as well. I think we're taken for granted extremely. I think we're very undervalued, not even from a monetary perspective, but from the value that we provide and the respect that we're given on a job site and in a team environment. I think sometimes we feel very undervalued. And I think one of the things that we should do is we should tell people exactly what we do, show them why it's very cool, but also why it's very difficult and why we need to be calculated and precise. And we need to show our value. And I think by being able to do that, it's going to be more persuading for kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old that are trying to figure out what they want to do. And they look at a building and they're like, oh, that's really cool. But no one is there showing them or telling them, hey, this is how it's built. This is how it works. And I think if you're able to tell that story by showing you how you're building it, who's involved with building it and the build process, and you show them you could build something that's going to take somebody to Mars, hopefully one day, or you're going to build a bridge that's going to service an entire city, or you're going to build an airport that's going to go ahead and connect the entire world to your town or your city. I think if we're able to show people that side of the industry that we work in and what we do, I think it's going to be very advantageous to market and show people what we're doing.
Yeah, I think people want to be respected too, right? And when you get to point at being able to do something like that, people immediately respect you. It's funny while you're talking about that, it jogged my memory. Donna, who works over at Jimmy John's, owns Jimmy John's. I was talking to her one day. This is around the corner in Milledgeville. Craziest thing, dude. I was telling her, I was like, yeah, we do this. This was years ago. We detail steel. And that was back when I was working with the family business. And she's like, yeah, I used to do that. I was like, oh, really? You did? And she's like, yeah. So we used to live down in Florida. I helped with the space shuttle and basically did the steel detailing around the shuttle. I guess what is the support structure for the shuttles? I was like, stop it, really? Like my respect for her, it was already up here, but then it went through the ceiling at that point. I was like, you're so freaking cool, man. Like, you did that, really? Like, small town Milledgeville, who would have thunk it? But all right, so that aside, I just needed to share that story because I thought it was random. But
it was random.
It was random, but it connected kind of. I do this sometimes. It's ADHD. This is what happens, right? So on the topic of getting more people into this field, into engineering, we're kind of like, the bed is kind of made in a lot of ways, right? Like we're gonna need to inspire new people to come in for sure. That needs to be an ongoing effort, but that's gonna take some time.
It does.
You know, it's not gonna be something that we're gonna easily be able to just turn the switch on and automatically we get 100,000 people into new jobs in the engineering field. That takes time and pressure, right? So part of this conversation is also efficiency, is also in, making processes quicker, easier, so that we don't quite need as many people to fill that gap. I want to hear your take on that though. So like, does that ring true to you? Like, do you feel like efficiency is going to help us get there or not?
Yeah. So for me, from I guess the state of the civil engineering industry that I see it from my perspective, there is this talent shortage that we're incurring right now, and we're trying to solve that. But then it's twofold as well, that we need to retain the existing talent that we have.
Right.
As I've been working in this field now, I was saying before, I see a lot of really smart engineers leave for a multitude of reasons. One being stress and high hours, even if the money is good. A lot of people, they want to spend time with their family, their kids. There were many times when I was a young engineer and I'd be in the office late at night with my senior engineer who was in the mid-40s. And I remember he said something to me that really stuck with me one time. He's like, I don't mind the work. He's like, the one thing that bothers me is that I'm not going to see my kids before I go to bed. And that really sprung with me. It was like, is there a way that we could create an environment that allows people to get home to their families at night and spend time with them? Because that's more important than the engineering work that we're doing, in my opinion. So it's often said, let's make things more efficient. Let's streamline processes. I view these as buzzwords and I kind of hate them. They make me kind of cringe a little bit. I think the biggest thing that we should be focusing on is reducing errors. I think it's very bad for business, but we make errors all the time throughout our industry and people don't want to say it because it makes them look incompetent. But we're human. And you realize when you're working in this industry, there are so many decisions you make on a daily basis that it's statistically impossible to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And with new technologies, new processes, I think we're going to be able to increase our decision-making ability and then also reduce the number of decisions that we have to make on a daily basis. And I think we'll be much more effective and we'll make much less mistakes, which will lead to much less RFIs, rework, and these sort of friction points that we get throughout the life cycle of a project. Mm-hmm. So I think we should really be trying to sharpen the pencil on the calculations that we put together, the drawings that we put together, the models that we make to model what these things are looking like in reality, and really just reduce our errors. I think just that alone will be a very important thing for us as an industry.
Yeah. All right. Here comes the rainstorm. If you're with us on the podcast, now the rainstorm is here. We're hearing thunder. So
this will be a nice backdrop.
It'll be a nice little backdrop. It's going to be soothing this episode.
I'm in the Thunderdome now.
In the Thunderdome. So, all right. Reducing errors. How do we do that?
The way that I like to think about it is try to think back to first principles and like where do these errors arise from?
Yeah.
In my industry, I've seen errors arise from multiple avenues. One being there are many times, so the design cycle and lifespan of these projects are long and you'll have an engineer start, but then he might leave or she might leave. And then another engineer will come in and fill their place. And they have to kind of assume like where this person was. And there's this knowledge gap that occurs.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a better way for us to bridge this knowledge gap, whether it's with some sort of AI or machine learning tool that has your data that you've created and curated to that point. So that way there's this underlying level of intelligence within either your organization that's keeping track of all this data. It's keeping track of all the decisions that you made, the assumptions that you used. So that way when there is handoff between projects, because that's inevitable, it's more seamless, it's more smooth. And you're understanding the drawings in the perspective of the person that created them, as opposed to assuming something that they might have thought or having a question about something and then having to reinvent a new solution, but the solution was actually there the whole time. You just didn't understand it fully. I think that's one way that we could definitely solve some of these errors that happen because they're just human errors. Like it's just a gap sometimes in communication or in knowledge that happens throughout a project or just throughout companies and with people in general. I think another way that we could really reduce our errors is just having different types of agents that go ahead and produce checks throughout our work. I've seen this so many times, but when you're on an engineering team and you're really looking at something and you're really sharpening the pencil on that calculation, people put blinders on. And you could look at something 100 times and you miss it. It's like sometimes someone asks you like, hey, can you grab a water bottle for me out of the fridge? And you open the fridge and you don't see the water bottle in there, but it's really just sitting there right on the rack. But for whatever reason, you just don't see it. Because sometimes you just put the blinders on, And by getting a fresh set of eyes, that's not going to judge you. That's not going to like hold your feet to the fire if you had to make a mistake and you had to look at something. I think there's a lot of value in a tool like that for my industry. Something that's going to question you on your assumptions as well. Like, oh, I see you're using 36 KSI steel here. Is that really what we should be using? Why are we using that? In another assembly, we're using a different grade of steel. Is this proper? Are you carrying the same grade throughout your calculations? Are we doing this right? Sometimes the checks seem very simple and they seem like they're very obvious. Yeah. But sometimes those obvious, simple things are the things that get missed and they get overlooked. And then they cause real problems down the line when you're actually fabricating steel or designing actual connections at the shop. And then they're much more expensive. The farther you catch the problem down the life cycle of the project, the more expensive that it gets.
Yeah.
So to that point.
I love that, man. I love that.
The standards thing?
Yeah.
We've found this in detailing time and again. The more we can standardize, the more we can get set, the less I have to think about later. And it's amazing how many times we'll leave something to just memory and we don't remember. So, a multi-rise building, I might mean to put safety cable holes in the wide flanges so that we can easily put the safety cables up in the field and keep everything safe, keep slab edge protected. And that's just a standard part of what we know to do. But it's amazing how many times if you just leave that to memory, you come to the point of assembly drawings. You've got assembly drawings created, and then you realize, oh, no, I didn't put them in just because it was a memory thing. Now, you knew to do it. It was a simple thing. It's something you've done 5 times before, but for whatever reason, you didn't have a process and a standard to get there. And we do that in softwares. We build standards into software so that we don't have to click every single button every time we make an entry. We automate some of the entry by just having things predefined. And the more pre-definition we can do, then the less decision-making fatigue I have as a person, as a human being later. And that has to, I think we've talked about like reviewing design that you might have gotten from a third-party engineer. Mm-hmm. You get that back and you go through review, and it's like trying to get the needle out of the haystack after that. It's just a lot harder. So I don't know. What are your thoughts there? I'm just curious, like when you were reviewing designs and you were trying to catch something after it was done, instead of getting something preemptively taken care of because it was standardized, right? Like, is that what you're gunning for? Like,
partially, yes. I think having standards and processes and procedures that are assumed at times and not specifically written is a problem. Something that I like to work on and work with people on is we create what are called recipes. So we have agents and bots that can go ahead and start doing some more mundane submittal review processes. And I was talking to a mid-level principal engineer at a firm down in Florida. And he comes to me and he goes, "Hey, Dan, I know that you guys are trying to really automate a lot of these submittals, but that's how our younger engineers learn." And I thought about it for a second and I'm like, he's right. Like when I was looking at rebar shops and I was looking at steel fab drawings and I was looking at concrete mix design reports, I was learning a whole bunch when I was doing that. So I thought to myself, how did I learn when I was going through that process? Because they didn't teach you how to look at a steel fab drawing in college. So how did I learn how to do that? You know, I went to other engineers and I asked them, "Hey, I'm looking at this. This does not match our current drawing set. Is there a constructability reason why they're doing this? Is there some sort of economic reason as to why they're doing this?" And I would ask a lot of questions. Typically, those questions by engineers are very replicable, meaning that people have the same questions. They just don't know the answer and they have to go to someone to find that answer.
Yeah.
In the building environment that I grew up in, senior level management did not have the most time to answer all of your questions. So you spent a lot of time trying to find other ways to get your questions answered. So where I'm going with this is...
Hey, Reddit.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd like to go to more trusted sources than Reddit for my review questions, but sometimes there are some nuggets on Reddit that are interesting.
Our how to build. Something like that, right?
There's a few of them. There's a few of them. But something that I like to do is create what's called a recipe. And this is a standard operating procedure for specific types of submittal reports that you're going to get as a company. And back to my story that I was saying from this principal engineer, he goes, "That's how our engineers learn." And I said, "You thought about it for a minute?" I think you're right. But there's no reason why we cannot automate and educate simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So if we were to go ahead now and create some sort of a program where the processes and procedures on, let's say, the concrete mix report are defined by the company, and this is what we're looking for water to cement ratios. This is what we're looking for admixtures with specific types of building products. This is the compressor strength that we're looking for, aggregate sizes, things of these nature. Typical questions that a young engineer has when they're reviewing these drawings. If we have that defined previously, and as you run and do this automated check, are you now able to teach the user what these processes are, why these checks are occurring, and you have an education that's happening. At the same time, your review process is standardized. So you're not making any mistakes that you were making in the past because, I asked the engineer and he didn't tell me about the aggregate size and I didn't look at it. And now we've got a mismatch on the aggregate size that we're looking for. So I think creating processes and standards are very important. And I think by tracking them and having a way to not just like automate this stuff, because I think automation is like a short-term solution. Like it's very good to automate. Don't get me wrong. We don't want to sit here and keep doing the same things that we were doing forever. Like with drawings, like CAD is nice. Doing structural models are nice. They're very time efficient. The efficiencies are very good. But I'm really worried that by building some of these efficiencies, you start to build a crutch. And I don't want to build a crutch in which we cannot get off of at some point in the future. So I think that we should really be focused on automating, yes, but I think we need to educate simultaneously.
Do you want to take it or you want me to?
You got it. Good.
All right. Because I want to push a little bit.
Please.
I want to push a little. Just because it's fun. All right. It's fun.
I like it. No, go for it.
I feel in a lot of ways the crutch can be it can be viewed as a crutch for a while, and I think it is a crutch, but at the same time, that could potentially just be the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that you hear that throughout history a lot of times with like the calculator, right? Don't use a calculator, it's a crutch. Yep. What are we doing now? It's like we're using modeling tools, we're using all sorts of stuff. It's a calculator.
Mm-hmm.
It's a calculator. And yeah, we've leaned on it as now a crutch, but now it's just standard practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if maybe that crutch is just kind of like, all right, maybe what if we just lean in? What if we just lean into it and we just go all in?
Go for it.
You know, like what happens then? Because you think about the labor shortages, you think about especially in the civil engineering realm.
Yep.
I mean, that to me could be a potential way of us solving this problem a little bit quicker and potentially setting it up for people to get paid really good money too.
Yeah.
To be able to leverage some of these new systems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to chuck AI out there because I know. We talk about it all the time here. We really do. And the way I'm seeing it is like this thing is becoming like, it's kind of becoming, like a thought partner,
mm-hmm.
right? And being that senior engineer on your wing that you can just talk to all the time.
Yep.
If it's trained well,
mm-hmm.
there's a big part of that. But for me, I'm looking at that going like, man, I think we need to just lean into this future rather than just say like, I don't know, it's a crutch,
mm-hmm.
Because I feel like ultimately in 10, 15, 20 years, the kids coming into the engineering trades, they're going to expect that,
Yes.
They're going to be like, dude, come on, why are we using this thing? Like, we got to use calculators.
Yep.
Like, no, So I don't know. That's kind of somewhat of a pushback there is like, what do you think of that though? Like, what about the future of the industry and AI as it's all connecting together?
I agree with you. We should embrace it. We shouldn't put our heads in the sand and act like it's not happening. I think we need to understand it. We need to build with it. We need to adapt with it.
Yeah.
The same way that we adapted with calculators and AutoCAD and the internet and structural design analysis softwares and FEA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A losing tactic would be just to ignore it.
Yeah.
So I think the best way for us to handle that issue is to grow and build with it.
Mm-hmm.
There are many powerful features to this technology. Like neural networks and machine learning are powerful. They remember me better than I know myself. Seriously, if you think about your ChatGPT, all the questions that you ask it,
I know.
Do you remember every question?
Yeah, I know.
I don't. But it remembers every question.
Yeah.
So there are times your cell phone or your GPT knows you better than you, which is powerful.
Yeah.
A little scary, but
terrifying.
but it does.
Yeah.
So is there a way that we could create a neural network that makes a really good engineering partner or a really good engineering team? Like we could have a team of agentic solutions where you have a bunch of interns that are doing little tasks for you throughout the day. I think that's very advantageous. The one issue that I'm worried about when I bring up the word crutch, my biggest concern is we lose this creative problem solving muscle in our brain that we need to develop and have a very strong concept of when we're doing these types of high end problem solving designs. And AI is great when everything works within known data sets and within known standards and with known procedures. But what happens when you get off the reservation and you're no longer there? Do you have that problem solving ability that you've been growing and cultivating? Which for me, I've known engineers that have been working on this longer than I've been alive. And they're the smartest people to go ask really tough questions to because they have a very strong muscle for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And what I'm worried about is my generation, we're just going to lean on AI to do all this work. And then what happens when there's a problem and we're all kind of looking around and no one really knows the solution to this problem?
Yeah.
What is that mental framework that we have to come up with creative problem solving like concepts and ideas? And how do we vet those? And how do we have a competition of ideas so that we can get to the right thing to do? I think we should use AI. I really do. Big proponent of that. But I think at the same time, we cannot lose sight that it's really important to be as strong mentally when it comes to being creative, when it comes to problem solving, and really trying our best to balance the two. It's such a new technology and it's very hard to see like where it might go or what it could do. I kind of see two paths. One path's kind of scary for path two. So path one that I see, that I hear a lot in the VC space or in more advanced spaces in the AI is that a lot of what we do as engineers are going to get commoditized and automated and the price of that's going to go to zero and we're not going to really need a lot of engineers anymore. That is possible. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. In our current market environment, it's very difficult because you do need someone with a stamp and a seal to go ahead and approve what that black box is spitting out to you. But it's a possibility. And the second path that I see is that we embrace this technology as an industry and we find ways to utilize it and to compete in a marketplace where we are able to create products and projects that are better than option one. And I think right now we're able to sort of creatively problem solve about these things. You're going to have option one where they're running simulation after simulation after simulation, and it's going to be able to run all these simulations and try to forecast kind of what the constraints of the project could look like in the future in these unknown frontier-like environments and situations. Yeah. And I think we really, really need to like understand what this technology is, and we need to start working with it, and we need to start understanding it better. So that way we don't look up in 20 years and no one's been talking about this or looking at this, but there's been a small faction of the industry that's all in, and they've really found the way to make something work where you give it architectural drawings and it spits out a full structural design set for you. And there's 2 or 3 engineers that understand what's happening and they feel comfortable signing and stealing it. I think we should try to learn and grow with it is my message at the end of the day. I don't think we should put our heads in the sand because so I have a friend and he's in this startup space and he runs a company and he does sentiment on Reddit. So he'll take a topic like Oreos on Reddit. And after Oreos goes and drops a commercial, he'll take the temperature in the room on Reddit the second after the commercial launches. And it gives you like, are people talking positively about my product, negatively about my product? It kind of gives you an idea of what's happening. Yeah. I asked him, hey, can you run this on civil engineering and AI? And right now what we're finding in all the different subreddits like our civil engineering, our project management, our structural engineering is sentiment's about 50-50. So there are some people that are very positively oriented towards it, and then there are other people that are very negatively oriented towards AI. For me, I think the burden of trust and proof is on the AI providers. I think that you need to go ahead and you need to build trust with the civil engineering, structural engineering community for them to really want to embrace your product. Is that going to stop certain people from using it and going all the way, like you said before, with it? No, it's not. But I think that's a major issue with AI currently in civil engineering. I talk to a lot of civil engineers, and of the engineers that I talk to, maybe 75% of them don't use AI at all. Maybe 25% of them really do. And they use it for like brushing up on emails or using it for like deep research sometimes, which is very effective. But no one is practically using it for any sort of generative design or real submittal review tasks. And the future is there. It can be built. And I think we should try to build that path. But I think right now we might live in a little bit of a bubble because we're in it every day. Yeah. And it feels like it's here right now. But if you go to the average engineer or to the average person on site, are they really talking about it? Are they even using it? Or is it just something that's kind of out there in the void that they hear whispers of every once in a while? To me, it seems like the latter. Yeah. I don't think it's as imminent here as we make it feel. As it feels to us sometimes being in the room and being in that space. But my warning is that exponential curves are very difficult for humans to perceive. We view time very linearly. And when technology starts growing exponentially, we lose track of how fast these things can grow and how fast they can learn and how good they can get very quickly. So I think we need to really worry about that. Yeah. I keep track of it. Yeah. You know,
that's my thing is like the exponential growth that's happened with we pick on ChatGPT because it's just the gorilla in the room, right?
I think it's the best platform right now, generally speaking. I think it is.
I mean, and Claude's amazing for its own purposes too. So like there are a lot of LLMs out there that are great. When you think through like how fast it has gotten better though, man, it's crazy. I was showing the guys this earlier, and I'll show it to you after this. But I literally was hanging out at mom and dad's house the other night. Yep. You know, I had a bubbly, one of those little, I put it on mom and dad's counter. I took a snapshot of it, just like with my iPhone, put it in chat, and I was like, make an advertisement out of this. Okay, now they just updated their model too, right? Yep, so you've seen everybody like posting crap about it.
Super viral. Yeah.
I gotta test it out. I can see what happens here because like this is just good for me to know about, right? Yep. It generates an ad, and I was like, "Oh crap! That's like really good." It's really good. It had the wording on it, and it was right. It looked like a legitimate poster.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, well, let me just say, take the background out, make it a solid background, and prompted it there. And it created another one that was every bit as good as some of the product images that I've seen floating around on Instagram or at a mall somewhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
they're professionally done.
Yeah, professionally done. And they spent $90,000 to do that. I was able to reproduce it in a matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And to me, I watch that because I mean, the creative realms is where that's where I've been for a while now, coming out of the industry. And now back into the industry. I got to pick one. I'm looking at that going, oh, junk, man. Like, it can be creative. And that's the thing that's wild to me. Now, is it perfect? Of course not. And there's definitely some guidance that needs to be done when using that product. But holy smokes, man. Like, that was the thing that was an eye opener for me, where we talk about creativity. We talk about iteratively designing things. For me, I think it's a totally different process or system that is going to be built up to where it's end-to-end model. It's not going to be going from a model to a PDF to a model to a PDF to a model to a PDF, which is basically what we're doing now. I think it's going to be a seamless transition all the way through. Now, do we have that yet? No, not really. We don't really have the systems built. But given the matter of 10 years and the way this stuff is progressing, that's where I'm looking at it going like, hey, job market's about to shift. And that's the thing that's really interesting too, is I'm like, all right, what if is option B or whatever? Yeah, right. Where all right, it does end up absorbing all of this and it's able to do that stuff and it is going to be commoditized. What I'm interested to see is like, okay, then what though? Like, what does that allow us then to go do? You know, because I think that is kind of the way innovation has worked up into this point, where it's like, we go back to the NASA analogy with Hidden Figures. Yeah, great freaking movie, right? Movie. Like the ladies in that, they were computers and their whole job was doing this all day long. But now they're actual computers that do that analysis for them and it's much quicker. And they're able to now leverage that technology instead. And it just, the jobs, they change. It's not so much that it's not a bad thing. And that's the thing that I keep kind of coming back to is like, instead of us getting super paranoid and freaked out about it, like, let's be more of a pioneer mindset and let's say, all right, if that does happen, how exciting. What can we do now? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think the people that are going to be stomped and really upset about it are the ones that don't keep an open mind about that sort of thing, right? So there's my soapbox. Eddie, rebuttal?
That was a lot of ranting. That really was.
What?
That just was. What? That was a lot. I'm trying to process that for rebuttal.
You're trying to process it for a rebuttal?
Yeah.
It's because you agree, don't you?
Okay. Hidden Figures analogy. One of the cool parts of that movie is when they're about to launch and they get a calculation from the computer and they have to go back. I forget which astronaut it was, wanted to go back to the computers, to the women that were crunching the numbers to verify. Like, if they say it's right, because I trust those people. And it was it's an interesting human element, and engineering does have a human element. There's a I'll call it a sacred trust in engineering judgment, right? And sometimes, specifically in maybe a forensic sense, you go and look at what happened or what is happening and do an engineering evaluation on that building. And you're using inference and judgment as an engineer to try to, I guess, project the math on what could be predictable about this structure. And so there is a human element, a human side that I think you've got engineers arguing for. And then you've got a very mathematical side that maybe you would hear people say that could all be AI, that could be automated, that could be just scripted. And I think there's a little of both here, and that will be an interesting journey as we try to figure out what path are we going to take and how are we going to retain the human all the while take advantage of the analytical. And I want to come back to maybe original point, which is trying to get that next generation into this and why this looks like a good place to exist in your career. Why does tomorrow look like a very good place to invest yourself? Because if I am about to go into college and I'm thinking, what do I do? I know I've got a son who's looking at these kinds of things, and he's asking himself the question all the time: will this be there? And if I aim at this now, by the time I get there, will it still be there when I get there? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of getting behind a young generation saying this is worthwhile, this is worth going into? How do you encourage them?
So it's funny. My mom's a school teacher back in New Jersey. And every year around Thanksgiving time, I'll go to her class and I'll present on a project that I'm working on. And the kids really like it. I've been talking about the Bechtel job for a couple of years. And they go in and they ask all these crazy questions like, why is it called Artemis? And I'm like, why is it called Artemis? Oh, it's like the lunar god. And that's what we're naming it after. So they look at it from a totally different perspective. And I think as an engineer, sometimes I get like laser focused on the engineering behind it, but you lose just like track of like the bigger picture, And I think as civil engineers, I put a post up on LinkedIn recently and I said, like, what's our brand? Like, what are we doing? Like, who are we as an industry, And my professor from Rensselaer, Professor Letchford, shout out to Professor Letchford, he's great. He says, we're able to provide the infrastructure in which all common wealth is built upon. And I'm paraphrasing, sorry if I didn't get it all. But that really resonated with me because what we do in the AEC industry is we build the foundation level for how everything else in society is built. And I think if you're a young kid out there and you really want to figure out what am I going to do for my life and is it going to be there? Well, my argument to you is the fundamental layer in which our society is built upon is not going anywhere. And if anything, it needs to be expanded upon and built upon. I think architecture and some of the structures and buildings that are built, I think they also provide a lot of optimism and a lot of hope. When you go look at a skyline, it's beautiful and the architecture is beautiful. And it makes you think like, wow, this is what humans are possible. Like this is what it's possible for them to create. It kind of asks you to yourself, like, what am I possible of doing? What am I possible of creating? Like, what could I do in this world with this life that I've been blessed with? And I think civil engineering is a great way to express that feeling of, I've been given these beautiful gifts and this beautiful life, and I could put my energies and my efforts into creating the real physical reality that people are going to exist in. They're going to live their lives within. And we're going to build a better and hopefully bigger future for the people that we love and the society that we live in. So I think that's what younger engineers and people that aren't even thinking about engineering should take a moment and think about. No shade here, but it's great to build applications and build things in the digital reality, and they're extremely valuable and they make society very good. I'm not going to say that they don't, but there's something about the physical reality that we are in tune with, that we are in touch with in a way that I think it's very hard for digital applications to represent and reflect. When you're living in these physical spaces and you're shooting a podcast here, the energy in this place, it's almost like it's alive. We were talking before about the history here in Milledgeville, and these buildings have so much history and there's so much culture here, and they're alive. The history and the people that were living within them and the lives that they had when they were there. The AEC space is responsible for creating and cultivating these environments and cultivating society and culture and life. Yeah. So I think younger people that are looking for things to do with their life, I don't think that's going anywhere. I think if anything, it's only getting bigger and better and more complex, and we need as many smart, hungry people to get into this field as possible to solve all these problems that are emerging. So that would be my model soapbox sales pitch.
I love it, man.
We got to go, both of us for the first time to New York.
Yeah.
And we took a ferry into the city.
You take it from Staten Island into the city?
No.
We're actually on the Jersey side.
Did you go from Hoboken?
Hoboken.
Yeah,
we went over. Yeah.
Was it Waukegan?
I don't know.
I thought that was the ferry route.
Sure, why not? We'll go with that.
So we went over. And so beautiful clear night.
Yep.
And we're going into New York City, and you see the skyline. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of like one of those nights where it's everything's lit, but it's backlit in such a way that you can see like the full skyline. Yeah. Just real pretty. Quite the inspiring thing. Yeah. So like growing up in and around that, I could totally see why you would look at that skyline and be inspired.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because it was insane. Like I had no idea the breadth of that city. I had no idea like what it would be like to sit under it.
Yeah.
And look up at it and just like really take it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was amazing. And then that was followed by complete dysphoria over going into Times Square.
The tourist traps will get you. You got to be careful.
Wow. Dude, that was crazy, man.
That guy in the Spider-Man outfit that was dancing next to us, man, that was just kind of wild. But And then going into Rockefeller Center and just seeing some of the things.
It got toned down more by Rock Center. I was okay with that. But Times Square.
Well, we walked by the cathedral on the way to Rockefeller Center as
we
well.
got barked at. That was fun too. It was a good time.
We got the full experience.
It was
inspiring from the standpoint of what we can build.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Just wow. Yeah. And so getting the opportunity to grow up there, have that as the backdrop. I mean, just even the childhood story and the inspiration of your dad, like your why is really cool. And I would echo what Tyler's saying. Like that is infectious. And one of the things about evangelizing the cause is like having a little bit of an infectious nature to like, no, I am that excited about it.
Yeah.
And everybody looking at you and believing it and going, no, that wasn't an act whatsoever. So I can really appreciate that here. I would say you coming on the show, I mean, this is for young people that are in college, coming out of college, just in their career. I would hope that the infectiousness of your attitude towards engineering does kind of get out and inspire some people to, stick with it, keep grinding if that's where they're at right now.
That's a part of it.
But then also to like, they're working to better it too, right?
Yes.
Like everybody together is trying to work for the betterment of how we engineer, how we build, how we work.
Yes.
How we relate to work and our family, like all of the things. So much appreciation, man, to the message there. It's really
Thank you.
cool.
I appreciate it.
And shout out to Ferris, like your new venture. I know we talked about how, hey, this isn't a sponsor show or anything like that, but you're starting something up. I think it's really cool. You're trying to implement like all of these ideas, like you're putting those together in Ferris. So check Daniel out on LinkedIn. I know I've been appreciative of the conversation out there. So
heck yeah,
it's good stuff.
I'll tee you up for a megaphone.
I think it's time.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, you got to get ready, man. All right, this is serious. All right, this is all live. No, I'm just kidding. It's not at all. We'll edit it if you want us to. But all right, dude. So if we gave you a megaphone in around 60 seconds to say something to the industry, what would you want to say?
It's a heavy question for 28-year-olds.
Well.
I don't know if you're going to listen or not, but I think they should. What I'm going to say is your hard hat is a crown. Wear it as such. Be a benevolent ruler of your craft. If you're the 16, 17-year-old that's cleaning up the site all the way up through superintendents, project leadership, take ownership of what you do. Take pride in what you do. As an industry, we want respect. We need to earn it. Can't just demand it. We must earn it. And it's hard what we do. What we do is very hard, but I think we need to take a lot of pride in the hard work that we do. And through that hard work and through that prideful work that we should do, we're going to build a better world for the people that we love and the people that live with us. So build like the future depends on it, because it does.
Let's take the dang beachhead, man. Good. That's good stuff. I like it.
Thanks for coming and joining us, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.